this is day 2. I believe having gone through the introduction of Python, at least we are now somewhere. We are not at the same point we were before yesterday's session. So to make these sessions interactive, I would encourage us to ask questions whenever we have one, so that say there may be a concept that say Jonathan is not getting it right, but if Mika asks a question, then it becomes a very nice opportunity for Jonathan to get the concept right, and that makes a group learning a very nice thing to do, as opposed to maybe to a private session whereby it's only you and the tutor. But when we are in a group, it becomes very easy for us to learn from each other. So should you have that question, however funny you feel the question might be, just bring it up. And I think from that, you are able to learn and appreciate whatever concept that wasn't making sense. All right. So in today's session, we are going to look at a number of things, do a recap of what we did yesterday, so that at least we can join the chain, right? So that we don't just dive into new concepts without having appreciated what was done yesterday, right? So I had promised that we will have a look at the different code editors that we need, but we are still not going to do that today. Let us still continue using the either the terminal, your command line, or basically the Python console. So we are going to introduce that probably tomorrow, right? So for now, we are still going to use the Python console, all right? So in my case, I have launched my terminal here, and I'll be accessing Python. So in my case, I have Python 3. So in your case, type in Python or Python 3 to access this, or alternatively, you can just search for Python, and I think you get something like Python IDE and click on that. So this is what you should be able to see, whether it's from the command line or the terminal, or rather the from Python IDE. We should be able to see this. All right. So there is something I had promised, because whenever you are working on this IDE, you might get that you are getting to the very bottom of the editor. All right. And yesterday we were using an approach which worked but wasn't the very best. All right. So I may want to clear this screen, and I just want to start with that. I want to start with that just in case I forget. All right. It's not part of. Um,
Dan,
yes, please.
we can see your screen.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Let me do that. Let me do that. Share that. All right. Please confirm once you're able to see my screen. Yes. Is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right.
Thank you.
So back to my terminal here. All right. I'm saying there are times you may be working on your terminal and you get to the very bottom section of your terminal. All right. So at least you might just need to clean off this space to get to this section. And this is just a by the way, right? So there is something that we call OS, right? So we are going to see that in the later topics. So what we need to do, we just need to import something called OS. So basically, OS will be helping us in manipulating the current operating system that we are in. So in this case, we are simply going to use it to at least clear our working space. So after that, we just need to have os.system, then into brackets. So if you are on Linux, let me just open a new tab here. I have a lot of stuff here. So on Linux, for me to clear off this working space, I just need to type in clear. All right. So for those on Windows, I believe if you just type in CLS, that should clear this working space. All right. So back to our command here. So in case now that I'm on Linux, sorry, now that I'm on Linux, I'll input clear in quotes, all right, and press enter. So that should give me a clean working space. All right. So for those on Windows, let me just share this. This is for those on Linux, in case you need to clear off your working space. All right. So for those on Windows, just have CLS. All right. So this should work for you. So in any case, you can do a trial by just opening your terminal, or rather your command line, and typing in some stuff. Once you have occupied, say, a number of lines, just type in CLS first. If it works, then this should also work with CLS. All right, I hope that's clear. Just wanted to start with that because we were using quite, say, an unprofessional method yesterday. All right, so that is that. All right, so the next thing that I want us to look at are the few questions that we had given. I'm sure we gave it a try, and we are going to look at what was expected of you in these questions. All right, let me try to do that. Right, so yesterday I think we talked a bit of the print command, whereby we were able to print a number of stuff on our Python console. So I believe everyone was able to do this. This is a bit quite a simple one. All right. So the thing to remember is we haven't touched on data types, but the thing that you should remember is when you want to print on the console, and whatever you want to print is a string, then it should be in quotes. So this could be a single quote or double quotes. All right. So in here we are being told to write a Python program that prints hello world. All right. So I can just copy that. Let me have that. Then in here I paste that. All right. And there we go. All right. So if we can repeat this with single quotations. All right. So you are not restricted in how to go about this. All right. So I think that was a bit easy. I believe everyone was able to do that. So in any case, just trying to look at another scenario of this. In case whatever was to be printed was, say, a number. Remember, we said that for numbers, you just print as they are. You do not need to have the quotes. All right. But we are going to look at how to go about converting integers to strings and vice versa. All right, so looking at the second task. So we are supposed to write a Python program to add two numbers and print the result. All right, so we should get the user input for the two numbers. All right, so as we are working on these tasks in this call, we may not be able to go deep, say, into a very professional program. So we are trying to approach it within the level of what we have covered. All right. So as we continue diving into other topics, we might get a different approach to working on these tasks. All right. So let's see how to go about this. So we are supposed to write a program that should add two numbers. All right. For now, let me just talk about number one. Let me just talk about number one. I should get an input from the user. So I want to input the first number. So I can ask the user to enter first number. All right. Can have that. So if I do that, then maybe the first number will be 20. All right. So in case I was to print num1, we see we have 20. Then I can have num2. Enter the second number, right? Then I can simply have something like 25. So if I print num2, all right, we see we have 25. So we are supposed to get the sum of these two numbers, all right? So if we remember what we mentioned yesterday, whatever you get from the user using this input method, it's usually a string. And we were able to see how to check for the data type. For instance, if I want to know the data type of num1, I can just pass it through num1 like that. So I just have type into bracket, uh, the variable name of whatever I want to check, right? And we see this is a string. So if, for instance, I want to say something like the sum of num1 plus num2, all right? Press enter and print sum, all right? You see what we get? We get 20, 25. But then, if we were to add 20 and 5, we expected 45, all right? So there are quite a number of conversions that needed to take place here, all right? I know we just touched a little of that yesterday, so don't worry. So we need to convert whatever input that came from the user to integers, all right? So instead of having we can simply edit this sum that we have here. And okay, before we go there, let me just show you something. All right, so I just want to assign x is equals to 5. All right, so if I print x, I get 5. So in case I now want to assign 10 to x, all right, what do? We simply talk of x is equals to 10, like you assign the new value to our variable name. All right. So if we try to print x again, we get 10. The point I want to bring out is, like, if you want to assign a new value to our variable name, you just assign it. So it will rewrite or replace the older value. So the same thing I wanted us to do here. So there are two ways to approach what we have here. So this conversion can take place at this stage. All right, we can try to do the conversion here, and of course here. Then once we try to get the sum by adding the two numbers, that should give us the correct value. All right. The other option is, since once we try to print, say num2, we get 25, but this is a string. We can do the conversion at this stage. All right. So we can have, say, sum is equals to, so to convert a string to integer, we just pass it to int. Just all right. So the sum we want uh, to cast num1 and convert num1 from being a string to an integer. So we can simply pass it in between, or rather, we can simply pass num1 in integer. We have that. Then in here, we can also do the same. All right. Then if we try to print sum, all right, we get the correct value. All right. So in here, it's you as the developer to know or to be aware that whatever input that you get from the user comes in as a string, because if you saw what happened here, we did not get an error, but the value we got was not accurate. All right. So just keep in mind that if you are to get this input from the user, just ensure to there are terms that we use to sanitize, especially when you are working with data related concept, that is data analysis and all that. You need to sanitize your data and just convert the data and ensure that each and every data is in the form in which it's supposed to be. All right. um, Let me just do a quick demonstration of say num1, or let me just assign it to, all right, let me just use num1 as it is. All right, let me do that. So instead of we said if we do this, we get a string, but then we can convert whatever we have here to an integer. All right, if I just do 30, then check the type of num1, we see that it's now an integer. So if I was to, okay, let me just do that to num2. So this is the second way to approach it. I mean, we have already covered the first one. I hope we all got it up to this point where we got 45, where we just corrected the input from the user as a string. Then when assigning it to the variable we named sum, we converted them to integers. All right. So in this case, there is the second approach that we can give, whereby the conversion takes place at the input stage. All right. So I just need to pass in that. If I get this one as let me just have 50, then let me print num1 and num2. All right. So in here we had 30 and in here we have 50, and we can confirm that that amounts to 80. Sorry. So I hope this is clear. All right. So as it is, we are not going to harden this application, but I want you to keep something in mind. All right. So for instance, we tell this user to give us num1. Let me just show you something. Let me just show you something here, so that as we cover some advanced concept. All right, let me just clear my screen. Import os.clear, and I have in here, I just need to put clear. Okay, now I need to mention system. So I wanted to show you something, to show you that one, we are done with this assignment in this level. All right, whereby we have been able to write a simple program that will add two numbers. All right, but an advanced level of this task here. Let me show you something. So for instance, we have num1. We want to convert that to an integer and then press enter. So this user decides that they will not enter a number. They will enter their name. All right. If you have enter, then that will crash your system. For now, we may be getting this error, but if it was a program, it will crash that program and it has to be restarted. All right. So as we progress, just pay attention on where we are going to try and handle this error accordingly, because this system is not supposed to throw an error. And if it throws an error, it should be an error not to crash the system, but to advise either the user or the developer what needs to be done. All right, so we can leave it at that stage. We're also going to see how to, I mean, we can just tell our program to sum two numbers, say x and y. And by doing that, we should also get something here. All right, but for now, let us leave it at that, but just take note of what we just mentioned. All right, but we are still going to come back to these examples. All right, so let's move to this one. So we want to write a Python program to calculate the area of a circle, get the user input for the radius. All right. So I'm assuming we have all done mathematics, basic mathematics up to some level. All right. But let me just do this area of a circle. Formula. We used to talk of pi r squared. All right. So we need to appreciate this formula as it is. All right. So our program requires us to, we want to write a program to calculate the area of a circle. The area of a circle given its radius. All right. All right. Sorry for that. All right, so there is this formula. All right, so in here we want to write a Python program to calculate the area of a circle given its radius. So we want to give the user input of the radius. All right, so the area of the circle, this is what we have. So we can come up with a formula. All right, so we want to have um, area is equals to whatever we have there. All right, so if we paste this one doesn't work. All right, so we actually need to either to write down whatever the pi is, or to import whatever is in Python. All right, so let me just show you something. This might be a bit something that we haven't reached there, but we are going to get there. So either you can set your pi to whatever we know. We used to tell that pi is equals to 22 over 7. All right, whereby we can talk about, let me just talk about pi is equals to 22 divided by 7. All right, so we can set it up that way. Then r, the radius. The radius is what the is the length, say the length of the circle. Let me just use that term, not actually the length, but it's the radius. All right, so what we do is that we need to get this radius from the user, right? So let me just have radius is equals to, let's convert it directly to input, all right, or rather integer. Then we pass it to input, all right, then enter radius, or whatever message you may want to pass it. All right, so if I pass the radius, let me just talk about I think 7 should do as good. All right, so they should be maybe 7 centimeters, meters, and all that. All right, so area, we have mentioned that it's given by pi. We have already assigned pi to that. Then we want to multiply by the radius squared. All right, so squared, we can just do radius times radius, that is radius squared. Alternatively, if you remember from yesterday's class, we talked about raising to power something. So this is pi times radius, then we want to raise radius to power 2. All right, that is radius squared, pi r squared. So we have pi, then we have radius squared. All right, so if we press enter, then we try to print a, all right, we get 54. Are we clear on that? So if we just do, let me open something here so that we can see the truth behind it. So we say that pi is 22 over 7. Then we have the radius. The radius is 7 times 7. All right, so basically this 7 down here cancels with 1, so we are simply multiplying 22 by 7. All right, so if we can have 22 by 7, we get 154, which is what we have gotten here. All right, so that is one of the approach, and whatever we are doing, we are going to see in probably from tomorrow how we can just write this program and execute one file. Once we execute the file, then we are just able to give the input and we get the result. But for now, let us for today, that is yesterday and today, work on terminal. Then or rather work on Python IDE. Then from tomorrow, we'll be working on code editor. All right. So this is one of the approach. We have been able to import the radius and converted that to an integer. If we didn't convert it to an integer, then you can be sure we would have gotten an error. And again, if the user doesn't enter a digit, a number, we are also bound to get errors. So with time, we are going to see how to handle those errors. All right. Then let me just show you method 2, another approach that you can keep in mind. I think we have something called math. All right. Then let me see. Let me just try to see this if it exists. Okay, all right. I believe you guys have done, you have already done mathematics somewhere where you talked about the area of a circle being pi r squared. So this pi, we can get it from math, all right? So there is a function, another a module named math that we can import. It's actually inbuilt. Unlike other modules that we are going to see installing first, math is an inbuilt Python module. So for us to use it, we just need to import it. All right. So back to our formula. We want to have the area being pi. So this should be math.pi. That is the 22/7 or the pi in form of the decimal. So we have pi r. So the radius is as we had here. All right, pi r squared. So we said raised to power 2. All right, then if we try to print area, all right, we see 53.933, all that. So if you look at what we have here, it's the same as what we have here. So the disparity comes because the math.py gives us in form of a decimal. All right, unlike the pi that we used here. If for instance we do 22 divided by 7, let us do this to see where the difference is coming in. All right, so this is 1428 and this is 1415. So there is that very small disparity. All right, so I mean either at least the problem should give you the approach to use. Alternatively, just use whichever approach that you deem fit. All right, so let me answer your question, Isaac, first. There is something that we will be looking at. We call it functions. All right. So maybe just a glimpse of how the functions work. All right. So say define area. Let me just do it here, but it will make a lot of sense once we get to working on VS Code or whichever other code editor. So we want to define area. So area is the name of the function that we are defining, right? So in here we can pass in something like radius or basically the name of the input, because for us to get the area of a circle, there is one variable, like and variable in this case is a value that changes. All right, so we define area, we pass in the radius, I press enter, then in here I need to return now, like we have pi. So let me just have math.pi. All right, pi r. So r is the radius. So we have radius squared. So squared, we have raised to power 2. All right. So I am press enter and enter again. So in future, I just need to call area and pass in my radius. So if I just do that, I get the area. So the radius can be 7, the radius can be 10. I mean, I can just the radius can be anything depending with the circle that we want to check. Again, we are just getting it randomly, but we can modify this so that whenever we execute what we have here, then it should request the user to import the radius. Unlike here, we are just entering a directory. We can modify this so that it will request the user to import the radius. Let me just do that quickly. So for now, we can just define it without passing any argument. All right. All right. Maybe I can give it a different name. All right. So let me just define something else very quickly. Let me just call it circle. So in here, I'm not gonna pass in any argument, but then in the return, I want to return math.py. No, not really. I want to first of all get radius, which should be an input. Then it should be, so we want to get enter radius. Let me just give some simple instruction like that. All right. Then maybe in this stage, I can also convert it to an integer. Please get that right. Alternatively, we must be keen so that we can convert whatever radius that comes in to an integer. Then I need to return math.py. So that is the area of a circle is given by, maybe I can also have something like area is equals to pi, that is math.py, r times radius squared power 2. All right. Then in here we return area. All right. So if we just do that, we have created a program that will always prompt a user to import the radius, and it returns the area. So if we have something like circle, so I just need to call circle as it is. So it will prompt me for the area. I give it our 7, and that is it. If I call it again, put it at 10, there we go. Call it again, put it at 20, call it again. So it will always give us the area of the circle. So it will prompt us for the radius, then give us the area of that circle. I'm not sure if I answered your question. All right. So besides using the terminal, we will see how to save this in a Python file, and every time you execute the file, you get the desired output. All right. So back to, there is a question, how to package the code to an executable file. So it will depend if the executable file you want to create is either a .py file or a .exe. So as I mentioned in the applications of Python, one, we mentioned that they can be used to create desktop applications. All right. So it can be used in creating desktop applications, and it can also be used to create, that is for desktop application for .exe. But generally, to create a .py file which is also executable, you just need to copy this. All right. Let me just do nano. Let me call it hello. Allow me to name it that way. All right. Then exit. So if I grep.py, we have our hello.py file here. So if I do python 3, then I run hello world, hello.py. All right. So I think there are some indentation stuff here. Indentation again is very serious on Python. So let me try to do that. All right, let me try to do that and see how it goes. All right, back here. All right, let me see why it's not we defined. All right, so in here, we need to call this function, because once you create a function, this is what we call a function. It's also good to mention it at this stage. we are going to see how to create functions in our data topic. But just to answer that question, we have circle. So we need to call this function, otherwise it will not return anything. So once we call the function, let me do that. Yes, do that. Then Python 3, then the name of the file. All right. So we are requested to import the radius. If I input our 7, all right. All right. So we still get an error back here. We need to import math. All right, because we have used it here. All right. Actually, this is how to continue debugging your application. Put your 7 there. All right. Still not doing that. Back to our program here. Instead of returning the area, or rather, instead of doing this, we can actually print. We can print that. Right. Type in our 7 and we see our area of the circle there. All right. So to convert it to a .exe, we will check for a package to use to convert that. All right, just a quick one. I wanted to show you something. I have ever created a desktop. Let me see if this can be used for any demonstration. Okay, distribution. All right, so I believe this was a desktop Windows software that was meant to just convert. I think it was converting between centimeters and meters. I mean, something like that. In case you are on Windows, you can try to download this. It's not harmful. It's a very innocent desktop application or Windows application that just displays, it will display a GUI where you can import, say, measurement, I think in meters or centimeters, and it will do the conversion. So it's something I just did some 4 years ago. All right, but then we are going to get to that point. All right, so okay, calculate a program that calculates the area. All right, I believe this is almost a repetition of what we just did here. So with what we just discussed in number 3, please look at number 4. In case you're not able to go about it, please raise it as an issue. All right. Then I want us to do number 5 as the last one. Then we use what we will have at least learned to try and do number 6 and 7. In case you are stuck, I'll be happy to address that in the next session. All right, so we want to write a simple Python program that prints hello, my name is, then it gives my name, then I am, or rather, and I am, my age years old to the console, where my name and my age are the user inputs. All right, right. So that's another kind of application. All right. Let me do that, right? So let me just have the name. I want to have the name. What's your name? And that should be from the user input. Enter your name. All right. So let me just have Daniel, right? Then age. Let's have input. Let's tell enter your age. Enter your age. All right. I'm 20 years old. All right. So if we print, anyway, we can just try to print a name. We can also print age, and we see we have them. All right. So we want to maybe let me just call this one a message, and I want to print hello. Let me have sorry. I want to have hello. Or can I just copy what we have here? Hello. All right. Let me just copy what we have here. All right. So I want to have such a message, right? Such that whenever I print, like whenever I print hello, my name is, it should give my name here, whatever we have here, then my age, or rather, and I am my age. All right. So just to touch on string concatenation. For instance, if I just print message, all right, we get as it is, but we would want to at least input my name here and my age. All right. So let's try this. Let us try this. So we don't want to pass in my name directly here. All right. We want to use what the user has input here. So the way to do that, we have quite a number of ways to approach this. So the first method, so we have hello, my name is, so we can leave a space, cross that, we do addition, we add to name, all right, then we put another plus, we do that, and I am, then in here I leave a space, do that, plus age, remove that, my age, add that, and cross that. All right, is it so hard? Do that, print message. So hello, my name is Daniel, but we need some space, and I am 20 years old. So back to our message here, I can leave some space here, also back here, and leave some space. Do that, then back here, we get hello, my name is Daniel, and I am 20 years old. So if we maintain print message, we can simply go back to the name. Name, let me talk of Kim. If I go back to age, let me just copy that. Age, I'm 19. So if I go back to printing the message, all right, okay. So basically, I need to kind of run this again so that it can update. So instead of that, maybe I can just talk of print. Then let me use what we have here. I print this instead. All right. So my name is Kim. I am 19 years old. If, for instance, I change the age to 40, all right, I return the print. All right, we see that we have been able to update that accordingly. All right. So that's one of the approach. Well, I'm not sure if I will recall the other one because there are quite a number of ways of doing it. But let me see. Let me see how this one goes. So okay, all right. So I'll remove this and put it in those quotes. I also remove these additionals, and I remove the double quotes, put them in those curly brackets, remove the plus and additionals. All right, so the question is, does it work like that? I believe not. All right, so let me try to remember how it used to go. Let me try to do some format there. I pass in the name and pass in the age. All right, so name not defined, name not defined. Okay, let me see. Okay, all right, let me try again. I think we might need to pass something here. All right, okay, perfect. So this is another approach that we can use. So we pass in the variable names in curly brackets, right? Like we have done here. Then the age. Then we ensure that we have this F. I think it's meant to format whatever strings that we have here. Then, of course, we have this format where you pass in the name and the age. All right. So maybe let me just share this. Maybe somebody might need it somewhere. All right. So I also think there are quite a number of ways. We have more ways to be able to achieve this. So just explore and choose the best, the one that works best for you. All right. So in terms of catching up on what we were to do yesterday, I think we should let it be at that point so that we can also look at something new. All right. So in here, I'm sure you are required to do some formula, just like we had a formula for finding the area of a circle. So please try it out. I mean, at least we have covered some basics that will help you get this one right. Also for the calculator, see how to build one from at least the few examples that we have been able to cover. All right. So far so good. Any question? Any question? Any question from that?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
In this last method that you are using formatting,
Mhm.
this last bit of format name age, you said what does it do?
So as you see, we have the variable named name, all right, that has my name that we requested the user to input their name somewhere. I hope you remember that somewhere. We have
Yes.
that. Then for the age, we have also the age. We have gotten the age from the user. So this is meant to capture the variables. This is a variable, think of it like data that can change with time. So this data will change on user inputting a different, say, a different age, a different name. So if now that we have these quotes, if we were just to pass in the name as it is, say even without this curly bracket, so Python will not know that this is a variable. So our print message will be like print my name is name and I am 8 years old. So by trying to by having this F to format and also now passing the name and age here, we are able now to capture the variables accordingly. So I hope we see we have Kim and we have age. And if we say, let me execute it again, name, let me use that, then the age. This person is 100 years old. And if we print it again, let me go back to print it. We see that it's able to capture the latest information or the latest updates for what of the data that the variables hold. Does that make sense? Right. So just do some bits of practice. I mean, this thing will make sense. And for now, we are doing a lot of copy pasting. Don't worry. It's because we are working on the Python console. Once we start, say, working on code editors, we will be able, the same code, we just need to rerun the code so that we capture the new data for the name and age or whatever variable that we want to fill with data. All right. So for now, we have these two methods, that and what we had mentioned here. Actually, I also needed to share this. And I also believe there are also some other methods that you can come across. All right, right, all right, all right, all right. So any other question? All right, all right, all right. So very quickly, I just want to mention a very on a high level on what we. Okay, just a moment. We want to clear that. All right. So on a high level, remember we were able to check for the Python version. All right. So if you encounter a new machine, just at least be in a position to do that. All right. Once you're able, okay, not okay. I wanted to talk about Python, and actually, I should not be checking that on the Python console. That should be on either terminal or command line. So if I just check on Python 3 in my case, I hope we remember that. Then the print statement, we have worked with the print statement since we came in. So it's a very useful statement or function. All right. Then for the functions, at least we have interacted with a few of the functions when we were having a recap of the assignments. So Just remember the addition, subtraction, multiplication. We have the raising a number to some other value, and we also have the modulus, the one that checks the remainder. All right. And we have also worked with user inputs. All right. All right, all right, all right. So that is it. That is what we covered yesterday. And if you have any question regarding that, I would be happy to answer that. All right, so we will be moving to the next bit. The next bit of today's training. I mean, we wanted to at least get a catch up of what happened yesterday. And the next thing I would want us to look at are the variables. We have already mentioned something retro about variables. And by variables, I mean whatever we have been saying, x is equals to something, name is equals to something, and all that. These are variable names. And we, by the way, mentioned the do's and don'ts when it comes to naming your variables, all right? So we also mentioned a few reserved keywords that you should never use to as variable names in whenever you are creating your program. So there might be some other do's and don'ts that we didn't mention, but at least we mentioned the key do's and don'ts. So make sure to look for some few articles pertaining the do's and don'ts, and it will help you somewhere. All right. So in today's session, or in the a few minutes that we have, I'll be happy if we check on data types, because this is another area that I mean, it's a very crucial area that we need to go through and appreciate how data type works. All right. Okay. All right. So just to mention what data types are. All right. So let me just do my stuff here in this editor. All right. So when we come to talk about data types, we have already seen we have something we are calling integers. All right. Or numbers. So the data type called numbers takes two shapes. All right. It takes two shapes. So the very first data type that we should be talking about is numbers. And we are going to break this one into some form. Right. So numbers. So when it comes to numbers, this could be whole numbers, and we can also have decimal numbers. All right. So for instance, if I talk about my age is equals to 10, that's an integer. All right. But then we generalize them as numbers, but within numbers we have integers and we have decimal numbers, which we term as float. Right. So if I try to check for, basically this is how to check for whatever data type that you are dealing with. If I am to check on age, all right, we get that it's an integer. Right. So when talking about data types, we can mention integer as a data type, an independent data type, all right, or mention it as a number. But in behind our mind, we know that in numbers we have integers and floats. All right. So the same age can be 10.5. All right. Let me check again for the type. All right. I hope we can see we have this as float. So these are the two data types for numbers that we have. Let me just paste something here. All right. So I mean, it's very crucial because we were trying to convert the user input to an integer, if you remember. Well, we did that because we were actually learning the fundamentals and the basics of programming and all that. But it's not the best practice. As long as you are not sure what you are doing, that's not the best practice. Because let me show you something. Let me show you something. In case I talk about int, remember, you can convert maybe a string uh, or maybe a float number to an integer. For instance, if I talk about integer and I talk about 10, or rather, okay, 10.5, I want to convert. Basically, we already know that this is a float, all right? And we want to convert that to an integer. So this is how to do it, all right? So if I do that, this is the output that we get. So the fact that we were trying to convert the user input to integers, it might lead to inaccuracies. All right, because for instance, think of maybe, let me just show you something here. Cost of what? Service. Let me just name something like service. Service is equals to input. So in here we have enter amount. So in here we want to enter the amount of the service. All right. So just imagine we are talking about say $20.5 or whichever currency that have some weight, whereby if we ignore this dot 0.5, we end up losing money, right? So if we were to convert this one to an integer, let me show you something. Integer. Do that. Enter 20.5. Actually, okay. Actually, it will not take it because of whatever the user has entered. All right. But let me just show you. We have service. All right, service. So that's 20.5. Let me try to convert it to an integer and see. Let us see the output. All right, not able to do that. So how fast have I converted to? Okay. All right. So okay. So basically, this is a string. Okay. Right. Let me first of all do it. Float. All right. Once you do the float, then we do integer. All right. So if we can see here, we are bound to lose a value in whatever data that we are getting from the user. All right. So it's very crucial to whenever we are converting, especially the user input, to be cautious about what we are converting. Otherwise, we might end up losing some values. All right. So that's just an overview. What we have in let me see what we have in this data type called numbers. So we have mentioned that we have integers and we have float. All right, we are going to look at some more examples in that. So we just wanted to understand what an integer is and what a floating number is. Just to reinstate, an integer, think of it as a whole number. All right, think of it as a whole number. Then for floats, any number that has a dot something, may it be, let me show you something else. It could be 10.0. As long as it has a dot something, then it becomes a float number. All right, so that's for numbers. All right, then in this we have string. All right, so let me just work with heading 2. All right, so strings, anything you put in quotes. I mean, x is equals to anything you put in quotes. That's a string. Even if you did put say 10, that's a string in itself. But mainly you'll find that in reference to string, we are just talking about maybe characters or a combination of maybe alphabet, special characters, numbers, and all that, right? And the fact that we have for number of times tried to convert between, say, string to integers. For instance, for now on the screen, I have x is equals to 10. If I check on the type, we see it's a string, but we can actually convert it to an integer. All right, but then if x was my name, or c is my name, and of course my name is a string, and we try to convert that to a string, that doesn't work. So as long as we are doing conversions, we should be aware of what we want to convert. It's not every other data type that you can convert from one type to another. All right, then another interesting data type, we have list. All right, we have list. So for strings, just think of it as a combination of alphabets, numeric values, special characters, and all of that. All right. Then the third data type that we want to work with, we have list. Right. So for list, what we need to work with. Okay. So for list, think of, let me use x as a variable name. For now, you can pardon me. So any data that you represent in the square brackets, that's a list. So if I check on that type x, it will tell me that it's a list. All right. So within this list, we can now include all data types. Okay, basically this is an empty list for now, but as long as we have the curly brackets in here, or rather the square brackets, then that qualifies whatever we have here as a list. All right, so let us add some elements to this list. So a list can contain numbers only. If we print x, we get that as the output. And if you check on the type, it doesn't change from being a list. So from the same list, we can add some strings. We can add some strings in here. Okay, what did I do wrong? All right, I needed to cross this in quotes. All right, so if I check, doesn't change the type, it's still a list. And so for now, we have only covered these two data types. Maybe I can also add that. If I check on the type, it doesn't change. I can also print that, doesn't change. All right, so basically we have only covered these data types, so that's why I'll just have that. But once we see the other data types, we are going to see how you can trash every other data type in a list. So a list, as long as you have the square bracket, that's a list. All right, so another data type that we need to appreciate. Then maybe once we appreciate all of them, we can now just look at all of them in general. All right, so the other that we have on the list, we have number 4, we have tuples. All right, come back here. And before I move out of the list, we are able to access each and every element of what we have here. All right, we are going to see how indexing works on list. All right, I think I need to save this somewhere. I'm not sure if there is a way I can save it, so that I just call whatever variable that has it. All right. Okay, so the next one, we are dealing with tuples. All right, so for tuples, anything that you represent in those kind of brackets, that becomes a tuple. All right, so if I try to check on the type, that becomes a tuple. So again, a tuple can take in different data types. For instance, I can have that. If I try to check to print X, and by the way, for this training, I can just have X. I can just enter X and press enter. It will still do the printing, but in production, or not in, but in when you are maybe working with code editors and you just call X, that may not know what exactly you want to do with X. So in this case, I can simply be calling X instead of typing in print X. All right, so we have seen that a tuple can take in numbers, and for this case, integers. So let me add in some floating numbers, 2.3, 5.6. All right, if I do that, or if I check on the type, it doesn't change. All right, I still go back to my tuple. I want to add in a string. Hello there. All right, it doesn't change the type, remains to be a tuple. And also, if I print it, we still get the same thing. Back to my tuple again. I can go there, add in a list of items. In here, I can add a list, and remember we said that a list can take in numbers or basically all data types. All right, if we do that, we see that, and if we check on the type, it hasn't changed. So so basically it doesn't change from being a tuple. So what's the difference between a tuple and a list? We see, we said a list can take in everything that we have here, and a tuple is also taking everything as we are saying here. But then we have mentioned that the difference that we can just look at and see is the way we represent them. So for list, we have mentioned the square brackets, but for a tuple, we have mentioned this type of brackets. All right, so that's one of the difference, right? Another difference that I would want us to look at that you may find in some challenges out there, we have something called immutable. Let's run some English. Immutable tuple Python. Let's see, right? So immutability, one of the key difference between tuples and other Python data structure is that tuples are immutable. Once a tuple is created and its content, or rather, once a tuple is created, its content cannot be changed, right? So let me show you what that means. So for instance, if I create, say, a list of, let me name my list X, and in the list I have 1, 2, 3, all right? And I want to change 1 to 10. I want to change this value from 1 to 10. I can have, so, okay, there is a concept that is coming up, but let me just mention it. So for me to retrieve this value, the value in the first position here, we do something called indexing. And what happens with indexing is that it starts from 0. So the position of 1 is 0. Position of 2 is 1. Position of 3 is 2. So for me to get the very first digit or entry here, I can just simply talk of X, that square bracket 0, it will give me 1 because that's the value that I have here. All right, so if I want to change this value, say to 10, I can simply do that, have equals 10. All right, then if I have X, enter or print X, we see we have 10. Right? Then, in case I was working with a tuple, this is where we are talking about tuples are immutable. You cannot change, but a list can be changed. You can just adjust the values as you wish. So if, for instance, for y I have that, all right? I'm not even sure if we are able to access them in the, okay, let me see. All right, we can be able to access them, but then let me try to, for instance, the very first value here is a 2. We have seen that by passing in index 0. We have said the first value is index 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, so by retrieving it there, we get 2. So if you want to change this to maybe 20, let me use stock of 20, right? Press enter, and we see that tuple object does not support item assignment. So that is what this statement basically means here. Once a tuple is created, its content cannot be changed. I believe the only change that can be made is probably changing the full assignment. All right, I mean, just reassigning everything, but changing the from this approach, we are not able to do that. All right, so that's a key difference. So we usually say that tuples are immutable and lists are mutable. All right, and of course, we also have dictionaries being mutable as well. Right, we are in tuples, right? And we have mentioned something about tuples, so maybe just a demonstration we can talk about. If we have at least those kind of brackets, you know, we are talking about a tuple. If in here we have something like that, maybe let me have a space, you know, we are talking about a list. Then for the string, just know we are talking about, I mean, when you see such symbols, just know we are talking about a list. So for numbers, in case maybe you have something like 20, that's an integer. If you have 39 point something, that's a float. All right, then number five in the list, let's talk of heading 2. Number 5 in the list, we can talk about dictionaries. All right, we have something like dictionaries. All right, another interesting data type here that we can look at. So dictionaries, let me copy my clear command here so that we start on a clean working space. All right, so for dictionaries, okay, all right, so I want to talk about someone. All right, so let me just talk about some person one somewhere. All right, then we want to represent this information in form, or rather the information of person one in form of a dictionary. All right, and dictionary, this is how dictionary does it. So using those curly brackets, right? So whatever we can input in there, we are going to see how to represent data in there. But having used the curly brackets, that's a dictionary. If we try to check on the type, person one, right? We see we have a dictionary, but this is the notation. All right. So the way to represent data in a dictionary, I mean, we have some elements. Let me just call them for now. So for instance, we want to represent the information of person one. I am person one. So let's talk about the name. So here, when we are declaring the so in here, we are kind of mentioning the variable name, right? So we have a variable named name, right? So the name of this person we have done, all right? Then we can have something like age, right? This person is 12 years old, right? So in this case, yeah, I hope you have noted we do not need to have a number in quotes. Remember, strings must always be in quotes, but for numbers, we can't have them in quotes. All right. Then what else? Location, maybe location will still be a string, so it's well represented here. Then we can talk about well, I don't know. Let me just use something like goods. I mean, the goods that this person deals with. All right, we can pass in a list in there. All right, this person deals with cars. This person deals with motorbikes, right? This person also deals with, I think that's enough, right? Then what other data type have we covered? We can also have this person dealing with, all right, let me talk about car types. Car types, all right? This person also could be dealing with Toyota. What else? Subaru, etc. I mean, I'm just demonstrating that in a dictionary you can also pass in all the manner of data that you may think of. All right. So let me do that, and we see that our dictionary has been created. All right. So in here we have a string, we have an integer, we have a list, we have a tuple. All right. Anything we have left behind? Right. Okay. So that's basically a dictionary. All right. I don't want to mention more about it. We are going to touch on that tomorrow. Right. So that we also mention something to do with. So for dictionaries, if you see that, that's a dictionary. All right. The sixth data type that I want us to mention is Boolean. We have Boolean. Okay. Rather, let me do that. Right. So Boolean. What's Boolean? So um, Boolean data type. Boolean data type. This takes two types or categories of data. So it's true or false. So if you think of Boolean data type, it's true or false. In representing that data, true can be represented by 1. False can be represented by 0. All right. All right. So, okay. Ismail, maybe I want to correct some data. I'm defining the schemas of a database for those who have interacted with DBs. So there is an entry that is checking if the user is a male or is a female, right? So, for instance, Ismail, I can assign that to true, right? Let me at least make it look better. All right. So in case I look at the type, is male, I see it's a bool. All right, representing Boolean. So basically these takes, we can talk about true or false. All right. And as I mentioned, true can be represented by 1. False can be represented by 0. Right. And okay, a question may come like, why do you need to go through data types? It's because even if you're not going to deal with data, you can, or rather you are not going to be a data analyst or data science and all that, you cannot escape from dealing with data. All right. Think of a website that has a registration form. You'll be requiring to correct user information. So in the user information, you have emails, you have phone numbers, you have, maybe you have a form that you are required to input your gender. So that is data. So by understanding how to deal with the different data types, you are able to know how to handle that data accordingly. All right. So I just checked Ismail, then that can be true. If I just type Ismail, I get true. I can also do that. I can tell it to be false. All right. If I check Ismail, it's false. All right. Then, for instance, let me try to convert to. I want to convert to. Let me just have bool. I want to have that bool. I want to convert integer number 1 to a Boolean data type. If we do that, we see it returns true. If we do 0, returns false. So if we come back here, instead of 1, we talk about a bigger number. Let's see the behavior. So any other number, so 0 is false, any other number is true. But the best practice is using 0 and 1. Maybe you can have a database or data in an Excel sheet or a CSV, whereby maybe the column of gender, or maybe just a column. Maybe in gender, what can we have? Maybe the column is written as male. Maybe it was a male thing. So we were expecting only males to apply. So the column maybe is named as is male. So the column, you might find values like 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, and all that. So those you can simply convert them to either true or false. All right. So basically, these are the data types that we have for now. You may find others, but these are the key data types that we are going to be dealing with. All right. Unless anyone has a question, that should mark the end of today's session. All right. So any questions? Any questions? All right. So we basically have the assignment. The assignment in or rather the assignment that falls under this section. I think, let me see, Python for beginners. All right, so these questions may not be, I mean, today we have done quite a number of theories, but just check on whatever assignment that we have here. I will still look for something to share with you guys on top of what we have here. And again, it might also be a repetition of what we have been doing. Don't mind about repeating. Once you repeat something twice, thrice, it will stick in your mind and you'll be able to appreciate what it means.